Hard for me to week.
Good evening, everybody. While the room's filling up, let's come to order. And if you could, please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which
stands
one nation,
One nation,
indivisible, liberty,
and
justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Could we have a sunshine announcement, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. This is a special meeting of the Jersey City Planning Board with a schedule 5:30 p.m. start to adhere to social distancing protocols and best practices imposed by city and state authorities. The City of Jersey City canceled all in-person public meetings until further notice. As a result, this planning board meeting is being held virtually as a video conference that is open to the public. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting has been given to the editor of the Jersey Journal, the editor of the Jersey City Reporter, and El Espacito, and posted with the city clerk on November 24th, 2021. This meeting was also posted on the Jersey City Division of City Planning webpage, and all distribution materials made available to the board were published and available to the public on the Jersey City Open Data Portal.
All right, thanks, Matt. Could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Dr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Torres.
Here.
Commissioner Cruz.
Here.
Commissioner Gangadin.
here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
And Chairman Langston.
Here.
All right, we have 6 commissioners.
All right, thank you. Could we swear in the staff, please, Mike?
See,
me.
Matt, do you swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Matt, I'll ask for correspondence. I know we have one biggie.
Yeah, we don't have any other correspondence, so I think we can lead with that announcement, Chairman.
Okay. Clean my glasses first. So the master plan for tonight is being carried. I believe, Matt, we're comfortable with giving a date.
Yes.
Okay, so we're carrying as it's written on the agenda, is the review and discussion of updates to the master plan, including the vision, the open space element, and the land use element. That is being carried to a date certain, December 7th, which is next Tuesday night.
And we also want to preserve the notice for
And
the-
we are, I'll refer to Santo for that, please.
Yeah, we can carry the item. It was listed for tonight's meeting and it'll be carried to the next meeting of the board, which is December 7th. This is the notice that the public will receive. There will be no further notice. All notices sent in regard to this matter are preserved for purposes of the record. So to everybody out there in the audience attending the meeting virtually, this matter being the master plan, it is listed on the agenda at the end of the agenda. It's the last item on the agenda or second to last item on the agenda.
It's item 12, second to last.
So it is item 12 on the agenda. It is titled Review and Discussion of Updates to the Master Plan, including the vision, the open space element, and the land use element. Those matters will be heard on the December 7th meeting. There will be no further notice. And those materials are available and will remain available on the link supplied in the agenda for this evening. December 7th, everybody.
December 7th, master plan, everybody. It's gonna happen. All right,
Unless it doesn't.
it'll happen, unless it doesn't, but it'll happen. Can we add that to the chat, please, Matt?
Yes.
All right, so while we're doing that, let's move on to new business. I'll call item 8 on the agenda. Is case P21-115 is an administrative amendment for 545 MLK Drive.
All right, good evening, everyone.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, long time no see.
Yes. Dennis Davino is my expert this evening.
Sure.
While we're finding him, this is not a notice case, so there are no notices. My name is Stephen Joseph of the Trummy Law Firm for the applicant. Pretty simple amendment. The client is removing the PTAC units in this building and putting in HVAC units. Because we have HVAC units, we need new screening. So there's really just changes to the roof plan and some of the elevations. Dennis can run through that pretty quickly.
Excellent.
Okay.
And Dennis, let me
There
just
he is.
swear you in. All right.
Okay, so,
Dennis, let me just swear you in.
oh, I'm sorry,
That's all right. Do you swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And for the record, could you state and spell your name, please?
Dennis Michael Davino, D-E-V as in Victor, I-N-O.
Thank you.
Mr. Davino, good evening. I know we qualified you last meeting. Your license is still current tonight?
We are still current.
Okay, thank you. You're qualified.
Thank you. In brief, the main change to for the amendment was really based on PTAC units. The original design approved by this board, we had PTACs on the outside of the building. We realized during the design development phase that PTACs really were not going to work for every unit, just some of the units, and then some of the units would have had to be a ductless system. So it was decided by the client just to keep it all one type of HVAC system for the units. And so we converted everything from the PTACs to ductless systems. So obviously with a ductless system, we now need separate condensers for each unit, each living unit. So we now there's no place to put the condensers except for the roof. So we now had to take up some green roof space in order to facilitate the location of the PTAC unit. So I have some amendment drawings. I can bring them up if I ever figure out how to do share screen. Let's see. Just. I don't know if did that
We
do
can-
anything?
We can see it.
You can
Yeah,
see
we
it.
have it.
Oh, nope, it just disappeared.
Yes or no? I got.
It just disappeared. We saw it for a moment and now we
Yeah.
see a manta ray.
Okay, we got it now.
There you go.
Okay, great. So we'll start with the first P1 sheet. What you see here on these this upper left-hand corner is what was approved by the board for the first floor, and then the second through 5. These two floor plans at the top of the sheet. The bottom of the sheet is what we're requesting that they be changed at. The first floor is really pretty basic. We had to take up some of this commercial space because once we got into the design development, we realized that we needed to make the mechanical room, the electrical room, the gas meter room a little bit larger, as well as the sprinkler room. So these things happen every time you get into the design development part of it. So you can see kind of the distance between here and here is a little bit longer than it is from here to here. And then the gas meter, the PSE&G wants the gas on the outside wall. So the gas room was here at the middle, and now it's up against the outside wall. So that's the only difference on the first floor changes. The second floor changes, 2nd through 5, really not really worth kind of going into this, but the only thing is that there's no PTACs now. So on the roof plan, you'll see we had about 2,400 square feet of green roof, including the dog run. We now have to utilize about 700 square feet of that space here and there for the mechanical condensers. So that's the change there. And we would be incorporating, of course, a screening device across around the mechanical equipment in order to screen it from neighboring buildings. So that's why we put the screening component. Before, we didn't really have any mechanical equipment, so we weren't really providing too much screening. The owner just want to shoot over. Oh yeah, okay, well, we can use that. I think this is an older elevation because it still has the word verge on it. And well, I could, all right, well, you know what? Let me go to this other one. Sorry. Okay, do you see that? That's still on?
Okay. Yes.
All right, so this is the approved elevation. I don't know if Matt remembers that they didn't want the word verge on that, so we took the wording off the building. You can see in the approved elevation, you can see that there are actual louvers underneath these windows and underneath these windows. Well, like I said, they didn't work here, so we ended up doing the thought process at the time of design was that we would just put in ductless systems in units that we couldn't put the louvers in. That was then decided that let's just do all ductless systems. So as you can see now in the revised drawing, where the louvers were, we changed them to glass. So we have these glass awnings, lower sections underneath the original punched opening. So where there were louvers, there's now glass. So that's really the only difference on the front elevation. On the rear elevation, I'll go back to this one, is again, the same type of thing. On the elevation facing Clinton was the same issue where we had P-tax, we now have all glass. At the rear, you see only this, we weren't showing P-tax. This is the approved elevation. We weren't showing P-tax on any of where we have the door openings, only underneath this glass. And you can see that's been taken out. So we're not putting glass here. We're just continuing the siding across. So that's the change in the rear part of the elevation. And that is it. They're the only changes that we're requesting.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis. That concludes our direct testimony.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple quick questions. The placement of the condenser units on the roof, do they mount directly? Are they anchored into the concrete?
Well, this is it's a wood frame structure, and they will be mounted over. The thought was maybe we can pick them up on some kind of a dunnage system and still keep the green roof. But then we thought how difficult it's going to be to maintain the green roof underneath the equipment. So where we're mounting this mechanical equipment will be directly, almost on a roof, probably about 8 inches off the roof on pedestals.
Yeah, that was my question. If we could save that green roof and just mount those units on top of the green roof.
We could try. I hope I've never put mechanical equipment over green roof areas. We can try, and but I just worry whether or not we're going to be able to, remember, sometimes you have issues where mechanical equipment is, you have to maintain the roof a little bit better.
Sure.
But we prefer not to, but if the board is insisting on it, we'll do the best we can. We'll pick the equipment up a little bit more, and we'll try to get green roof on, maintain the green roof. We just thought that it would be less of a maintenance issue if we didn't have to put the green roof under there.
Yeah, I'm not demanding. I'm just curious, does that trigger a deviation, a green roof deviation, or no?
A deviation from having green roof?
Yeah.
No, I believe it was really the occupied roof space that increased it, and actually it was increased based on what the community board wanted. They actually wanted us to provide additional occupied roof space. So I don't think, Stephen, is you?
We were, I'm pulling the old application now, but we were significantly over, we had a lot of green roof space on.
We had 2,400, well, including the dog run, 2,445 square feet of green roof. We're reducing that by 700 if we don't put the green roof underneath the condensers to 1,745. So it's still a lot of green roof.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that, we don't have to give you a deviation for it tonight and we just don't know about it. That's all. I did get Jeffrey just let me know, those last 2 pages, I think that you went through are not in the packet. So we would have to mark those.
Oh, which ones?
The
other plan you brought up that doesn't have the verge signage on
Yeah,
it.
well, that was actually what was approved, the final set that was signed by, was signed by the planning board. Didn't have that on there, so,
Yeah, Dennis, we just need to mark the other set that you brought up
okay.
because we did not distribute that to the board. So if you could just read off the sheet number and
Yep.
the date that's on there
Mm,
and describe it.
Okay, well, we're calling it SK1, and it is the approved elevation without the graphic on the upper part of the parapet, I guess you call it.
Okay, and is it dated, the sheet?
Well, today's date, because so we can use today's date for that.
Okay, and we'll just need you to send us this digitally.
Okay.
Does that mark it or does that describe it for your purposes, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good catch.
Stephen, I'll send this over directly to you, Matt.
Yeah, and I guess we're marking that A2. Oh, no, A1. There was no
A1.
notice here.
A1.
Okay.
All right, I'll shoot it over right now.
All right, appreciate it. The only other question I do have, Mr. Davino, these are, I'm just getting up to speed on ductless systems, unfortunately. They're like split systems, correct?
I'm sorry, they're what?
They're split
Yeah,
systems?
they call them,
ductless?
another word is they call them mini splits is another name.
Yes. So there's no penetrations on the outside of the building here. They're all internal?
Other than the roof, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so all the line sets run up to the condensers internally and go out onto the roof.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
so,
They would require a condensate line, but that will be drained down through the plumbing system.
okay, gotcha. They can't just drain out onto the roof?
Well, then you would have to pump them up, and then you got pump problems because you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Understood. Good, I learned something tonight. I'm glad I signed on. That's it for me. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Davino. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you could, please stop sharing your screen.
Yep.
And I feel like I need to travel with you. You have some great pictures.
Oh, shoot, you guys can see that?
Yeah. You look good.
Yeah, this is my, the days when I used to scuba dive. Those days are over.
Never too old.
And I did want to clarify for the board. I took a quick look at the plan. There's not a green roof requirement. It just says that the green roof shall be maximized to maximize recreational amenity space and remaining rooftop areas developed as a green roof. So mechanical equipment and all that is anything extra beyond that shall be green roof.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so if nobody else has questions, I'll open it up for public comment. If anybody's here from the public that wants to comment, please raise your hand. And once again, if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Anybody from the public, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this application. And if you're calling in, you can press *9.
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone. I move to close the public.
Second,
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Public is closed. Matt, you're sitting in for Cameron tonight, correct?
Yeah, I'm sitting in for Cameron.
Okay.
So I was briefed on the application and by Cameron and was watching this presentation here. The changes seem very minor. Staff would recommend approval.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case P21-115 as presented to the board here tonight.
Second,
Okay, motion is made and seconded for approval.
On a motion to approve, Dr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Torres. You might be on mute there.
I vote aye.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Gangadin,
aye.
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
and Chairman Langston.
Aye.
Motion carries. All in favor on a motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
And thanks for having this special meeting. Appreciate it.
No problem, no
Matt,
problem.
you want me to send this to you or Cameron?
You can send it to me,
oh.
Dennis, and I'll forward it over to.
Oh, all right, you got it.
Okay,
All right,
thank
good
you,
night,
guys.
good night, everyone.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. All right, let's move on to item 9 is case P21-117 is a 1-year extension request for the address 444 Washington Boulevard. And once again, while we're waiting for Mr. Tuval, if anybody's on here that didn't hear the announcement in the beginning, the master plan examination has been carried to the December 7th meeting. And once again, this is your notice. You will not receive new notice. So it's carried to December 7th.
Ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yeah, we're all set for you.
Okay, great. So thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Tuval, attorney for the applicant. This was an application that was approved back in October of 2019, 444 Washington Boulevard, block 11603, lot 6. It was for a 70-story tower with 950 units. The applicant was Urban Renewal, Tower Cove, Jersey City Urban Renewal, Inc. This is a 1-year extension that we're asking for based on the fact that we still need to obtain some additional governmental outside agency approvals. It's the first extension that we've sought in connection with this application. And we're doing this somewhat conservatively. I think we're in some new territory here where there was a Permit Extension Act in 2020 for COVID-19 that was adopted by the governor. It told all approvals from March of 2020 through actually June of 2021. So I believe we actually have more time on this. We have maybe an additional 12 months before we actually had to ask for this extension. However, based strictly on the MLUL prior to COVID-19, we just thought it would be prudent to ask for the extension without prejudice to the other rights that we may have in addition to based on the Permit Extension Act. So it's the first extension. I'm still working on some outside agency approvals, and some of the other delays were just due to COVID-19 and the world just kind of, coming to being pretty slow from a permitting process. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thanks, counsel. And yeah, believe me, we understand.
So Chairman, the only thing I would add from a legal perspective, I think that Mr. Tuval is correct. I think that the extension probably grants him an additional year. So if the board were to act favorably upon it, I would recommend that we put in the resolution that 1-year extension starts from the June 2021, count the year, and start the extension that way. So it may actually give him the first 2 years in case he winds up needing additional extensions thereafter.
Sure.
Doesn't lose the year, so to speak.
Yeah, and I can work with Mr. Olampi on just ensuring that the date is accurate pursuant to the 2020 Permit Extension Act as well.
Okay, sounds good. And of course, any comments from the original approval conditions and
Right,
what-
all still in effect, correct?
Okay. Anybody, any questions? Oh, okay, thank you, counsel. Is anybody here from public that wants to comment on this? If you'd like to comment on this application, please raise your hand. If you are calling in, you can press *9. I don't see any call-ins, but
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone. I'd like to make a motion to close the public.
second,
okay, motion is made and seconded. Public is closed. I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry, Matt, do you have anything you want to?
I'll just add that Mr. Chavel's been coordinating with city planning on squaring away some of the public access easements that are tied to the approval for this, and we believe that they'll shortly be before city council. So there's a good effort of moving this application forward. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case P21-117 as presented to the board here tonight.
second,
All right, motion is made and seconded for approval.
On a motion to approve, Dr. Gonzalez,
Mr. Tuvell, I appreciate your being proactive and being here earlier than you needed to be, and we appreciate that. I vote aye.
Commissioner Torres,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Gangadin,
aye,
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
and Chairman Langston.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very
Motion-
much, everybody.
All
Motion
right.
carries, all in favor.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, let's move on to item 10 is case P21-130 is an administrative amendment, address being 17 to 19 and 53 to 63 Yale Avenue, and 400 and 148 to 430 Claremont Avenue. Applicant is 400 Claremont Urban Renewal LLC. Mr. McCann?
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, staff and council. Nice to see you all tonight. My name is Jim McCann from the Law Office of Connell Foley in Jersey City. I'm here tonight appearing on behalf of and representing 400 Claremont LLC in connection with property at Block 21801, Lot 4.01, commonly known as 400 Claremont Avenue in the Route 440 Culver redevelopment plan area. The relief requested tonight, this is an administrative amendment with a handful of very minor changes, one to the exterior of the building and the rest to the interior of the building. As you may know, this is a 6-story building, contains 631 residential units. As approved, about 12,000 square feet of commercial and a parking garage as approved currently with 279 spaces. It's located on Claremont Avenue, near the NJ Transit parking lot and West Side Station Transit light rail facility station. I did notice, so I'll just take a moment and ask counsel if he would please confirm that he received my notice and that it's adequate for jurisdictional purposes. And while he's doing that, Matt, I have one witness. It's Michael Higgins. So if you could promote him, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I think he's listed as MHS architect, so I just promoted him.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Chairman. I am to receive the affidavit of publication, proof of mailing with respect to the 400 Claremont Ave case P21-130. Had the opportunity to review it. All does appear to be in order. Jurisdiction is proper before this board. We'll mark it as A1 for the record.
Okay, thank you, counsel.
Okay, just the documents that were filed with the planning department in connection with this application are a letter application and a select number of sheets of architectural site plans and civil plans. All of those documents are posted on the Planning Division web portal. And having said that, I'm just going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Michael Higgins, who's the project architect and has been from the inception of this project. And he'll very briefly run you through, there are 6 changes to the plan. He's going to take you through them.
And Michael,
thank
let me just swear you in before you get started. Do you swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
For the record, could you state and spell your name, please?
Michael Higgins, Higgins.
Thank you.
Mr. Higgins, good evening. Were you the architect of record on the original?
I think Dean was the original architect of record, and I'm
I thought
working
so.
on this for the amendment.
Okay.
I've been involved through the construction though, so I
Okay.
bit more connection to it
So
recently.
obviously, we've qualified you before, and I hope your license is current tonight.
It is still current. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're qualified again.
Terrific. I'll share my screen and we can run through these changes. Okay. Let's see. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
We
Okay.
can, yes.
So let me just get my cursor on the right location. This is the ground floor plan that was submitted as Mr. Okay, let's go back. As Mr. McCann indicated, the changes are primarily have to do with the interior of the building, but there is one small 165 square foot vestibule that was added onto the front of the building. So to orient you, we're on Claremont. This is the recessed courtyard that acts as the entry point to the main lobby of the building. And at one point, it was contemplated that we'd have a revolving door as part of the entry sequence, so it didn't interrupt the lobby too significantly. But since COVID and people's concerns about touching surfaces, the developer requested that we change the design to a double acting sliding door. So it's all motion detector activated and people can access the building without touching anything. And it allows it to be a little bit more COVID preventing or safe in terms of today's spirit. So that was the change to that. There's still a significant amount of the plaza, and the setback from the curb is approximately 30 feet. The other changes had to do with 2 small studio units were removed in this area in the center of the building to allow for a larger open mail room with more connection to the residential units that are along Yale. So at this ground floor, the owner decided to remove 2 units. So the total unit count is revised from 631 to 629. And that changes the number of studios to 225.
Mr. Higgins, I just have to pause you 1 second. I just realized, and Vice Chair Gonzalez just realized as well, he does need to recuse on this application.
Okay.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll see you in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Higgins, go ahead.
No problem. No problem. The other changes within the ground floor have to do with some of the amenity spaces because of the very wide length of the building, 600 feet, a little bit more than 600 feet. The developer requested that we have a better sense of connection. So there's a long open space that goes east to west that links both the pool deck, the different amenity rooms, the game areas, and some of the outdoor gardens and from the fitness center all the way through the building. And so that becomes an area where there's a lot of informal seating for building residents to occupy during the day, to get out of their apartments and to spend time and gather. There's also been some development of some monumental stairs that use a curve form that allows the lobby to feel a little bit more hotel-like or stylized. It was a design intent. Some of the other changes have to do with the basement, but what they entail is providing the storage areas for the retail. There's a small cafe and a natural juice store and a restaurant, and we added some storage spaces, and I'll go to the basement plan now to show you these spaces for those retail spaces. So a 3 small or 4 small retail storage spaces were added. That allows the ground floor, since it's sort of shallow space, it allows it to be the active retail space for a better pedestrian and activate the sidewalk. And it just seems to work better not having the storage on the first floor of the building. What happened when we took these spaces, we lost some parking. We had more parking than was required. Now we have 258 parking spaces, 22% are compacts, 30% are permitted, so we're within that number. And the number of spaces that were required is less than that. I don't have it on my cheat sheet here, but we exceed the required amount of parking.
So, Michael, does it refresh your recollection if I tell you the required amount of parking pursuant to the redevelopment plan is 208 spaces?
That's correct. That
Okay.
refreshes my memory. Thank you, Jim.
So we're still well over the.
Well over the
required-
required amount.
Right.
Some of the other changes that had to do was a reconfiguration of the bike parking. We've actually added an additional 318 spaces are required under this plan, but we've providing 324 spaces throughout the garage. Some additional private storage spaces were added in these rooms that include approximately, I think, 150 private storage lockers that are both inside rooms and then at the front of these parking spaces. There was a little extra room in the garage depth that wasn't required for parking, and so private storage lockers were also added. Parking, the amenity. No additional variances, no new variances were required for any of these changes. And again, mostly they were interior changes, with the exception being that vestibule at the front entry.
And Michael, just to confirm, the plans that you've put up on the screen tonight are actually the plans that are filed as part of our administrative amendment, correct?
That's correct. And it has the red clouds on it. And we went through these with the planning department.
Yep, okay. I have no further questions, commissioners.
All right, thank you, Mr. Higgins. Yeah, I have no questions. Anybody else? All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. McCann, anything else from you?
No, that's my presentation.
Okay, and obviously,
Request approval.
Sure, and obviously, any conditions that were on the original approval still apply as long as they don't interfere with these changes tonight.
Acknowledged.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, Mr. Higgins, if you could please stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find that right now.
All right, thank
Here
you.
we go. Yep.
Okay, so at this time, let's open it up for public comment. Anybody from public that wants to comment on this application, if you could please raise your hand. And if you are calling in, we do see the councilwoman with her hand raised. And if you are calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand.
Promoting Councilwoman Panzeri.
Good evening, Councilwoman. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing well. How's everybody?
Great. I just need to swear you in before you speak. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mira, good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
And we usually have a 5-minute limit for public comment. We do waive that for the only the Ward B councilwoman. So you're up.
Well, that won't be necessary. I'll just be very brief. I just want to get on the record just some of the concerns I have with the removal of 20 parking spaces in this building. As you all will recall, when we had our community meetings a couple years ago now, parking was a concern, even though they were doing over the amount, and even though there is proximity to the light rail, that's working on an assumption that people in the area are using that method to commute. So I just, just want to get those concerns on the record. That was a fight for the residents that they did want to have, and to see that removed it's going to be disappointing for people and frustrating, because if those 20, assuming that all of the spots will be taken, those 20 cars go onto the street, and then you also have the retail component with people potentially driving in there, which is going to exacerbate an already congested area. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. And that is zone parking over there, correct?
I don't know if it extends all the way down to Mallory Avenue. There is zone parking from parts of Bergen, Grant Avenue, Broadman Parkway, Audubon, parts of Culver, starting at Bergen Avenue, but I don't know that it goes all, I think it stops at West Side Avenue.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so if somehow that got included in zone parking, obviously those residents that didn't have a parking spot in that garage would not be able to get zone permits.
Correct.
Just a heads up.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. All All right, anybody else from public? If anybody wants to comment, please raise your hand. And if you are calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Anybody else from public?
Chair, seeing no more public comment, I would like to close the public comment at this time.
Second it.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Public is closed. Matt, do you have anything you want to add?
So I'm going to just reiterate that their amendments, they're not asking for any variances. They are minor as far as regarding exterior changes. And the reasons were made clear as to why they're changing the vestibule to contactless. I think the only item that maybe we would just want to have them or just touch upon was that they just straightened out the dumpster and the trash removal based on their coordination with the Division of Sanitation. And that was reflected in the plans they were showing here tonight. With that, staff has no other comments.
Okay, thanks, Matt. All right, I would entertain a motion then.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case P21-130 as presented to the board this evening.
Second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for approval.
Okay, I'm going to say acting chairman, vice chairman Gengadin,
Aye.
Commissioner Torres.
Yes, I want to thank the councilwoman for taking time out to let us know. It's kind of disappointing that they had community meetings. They make these agreements with the community and then have community meetings to let them know that they're taking these spots away again after a amount of time. I know it seems like kind of necessary to do for what they're trying to achieve, but you can kind of make a promise to the community that they were going to have this many spaces, even though they're extra. It's a shame that they don't find another way to redesign it and put those spaces back, at which they would. You can't count on the zoning part for that area. So I'm going to vote aye, hoping that they come back to us and tell us they're going to give the other 20 back. That's all.
Commissioner Cruz,
I vote no.
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Chairman Langston.
Yeah, I do want to recognize the councilwoman. I completely agree. And I agree with Commissioner Torres as well. You know, this plan was presented to a community with those parking spaces in mind. Be that as it may, it doesn't create a variance that they're reducing that number of spaces. So do I wish that they reached out to the community and discussed it with them? Of course. But as far as the planning board goes, I don't see, you know, anything within the law that we could hold them to those. So, you know, it's an unfortunate aye for me tonight.
Motion carries 4-4, 1 against, and 1 recusal.
Okay, thank you. All
Thank you,
right,
commissioners. Appreciate your time.
thank you, council. And if we could, let's bring Vice Chair Gonzalez back up. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
let's move on to item 11 on the agenda is case P21-118 is a site plan amendment to a final major site plan with variances. Address is 351 Marin Boulevard.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jim McCann. Matt, before I go on the record, I have a number of people. Jacob Majnemer from HLW, John Gehring from HLW, Matt Knowles from Dresner, and Julie Kabisky from Malillo.
I think I missed the third name you said there.
Matt Knowles.
No, before that one. Jay Garing, you said?
Jacob Majnemer, he's up. You have him. I see him.
Who's John Gearing?
John Gehring, I think you're
Yes,
missing. so
there
far,
you go.
yeah. Good evening again, Commissioners. My name is Jim McCann from the law firm of Connell Foley, representing 351 Marin LLC in connection with property at Block 11508, Lot 3.01, commonly referred to as 351 Marin Boulevard. It's located on Marin between First Street and Bay Street in the Morgan Grove Marin redevelopment plan area. The relief requested tonight is an amended final site plan for a handful of very, very minor changes to the approved plans. And there's also a request for 2 signage deviations to increase the square footage and add lighting to a previously approved main entrance residential sign. Having said that, procedurally, I did notice in accordance with the MLUL, so I would turn it over to counsel to just confirm receipt of my notice and that I have jurisdiction tonight.
Thank you, counsel. I am in receipt of the affidavit of publication proof of mailing with respect to the application at 351 Marin Boulevard. It is case P21-118 here in the city. All does appear to be in order. We can mark that as A1 for the record, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
So, as you may know, this project is under construction, and in fact, it is near substantial completion. It's 38 stories, 507 residential units, about 8,000 square feet of ground floor commercial, 203 parking spaces in the garage, and a 4,500 square foot plaza located on the corner of Bay and Marin, which is what you're looking at on your screen right now. This project received an initial preliminary and final site plan approval on November 13, 2018, received an amended approval on December 30th, 2019. During the course of construction, there were some changes that needed to be made to the plans. The filing that was made with the planning division for this application included amended final site plans prepared by Dresner Robin, the project civil engineers, HLW, the project architects, and Melillo and Bauer, the project landscape architects. Each set of plans was accompanied by a detailed memorandum from each of those disciplines summarizing and outlining the changes to the plans. All those memos are dated September 22nd, 2021. Besides that, all changes to the plans were called out by clouding. There was also a principal point statement filed in support of the signage deviations. And all of those documents are posted on the web, the Planning Division web portal. And any slides that you see tonight are included, are the actual plans that were filed with the Planning Division. I'll tell you just as a summary of the application that none of the changes to the plans change the height of the building, the number of stories, the unit count, the unit configuration. There are no changes to the parking garage, no changes to the parking count. There are no changes to the square footage of the plaza, no changes to the features in the plaza, no changes to the landscaping in the plaza, and there are no changes to the building facade materials. Literally all of the changes to the project are, I would consider to be ornamental. Just to give you a couple of examples, there's some directional signage that we're requesting approval for on the building. some of the pavers in the size of some of the pavers in the plaza were changed a little bit to increase drainage. Garage fixtures inside the garage were changed because the fixtures that were originally approved could no longer be obtained. Those are the kinds of changes that we're asking for tonight. And we are, as the applicant, we are willing and ready to just rely on the plans and our memorandums that were submitted to planning for this board to approve, rather than go through each and every change that was made on the pages of the plans. So if it pleases the board, we're willing to do that. The only thing that I can't do that on would be the signage deviation. I'm going to put in a little testimony on that. I do have Matt Knowles from Dresner ready to testify if necessary, or answer any questions you might have about the filed plans. John Gehring is available to testify in connection with the architecture, and Julie Kubisky in connection with any landscaping. But the changes are so minor, I'm willing to just move forward based upon the plans and the memos. For the vast majority of the changes, there was a change to the flood barrier system, but again, it has no impact on the streetscape or the facade of the building. It's a very minor change to the system. So Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask you if the board is willing to just rely on the plans and the memos, if you've all reviewed them, and ask if you have questions.
Yeah, I agree, Council. I don't have any questions. I'll ask the rest of the board if they have any questions regarding any of these changes. And I would ask Matt, would you, I mean, I have my answer. Would you consider this de minimis, except for the signage?
The amendments described, yes.
Okay.
I think the only thing that I wanted to call out on the record regarding the operation was just that they provided some more information on the fountain jets in the plaza, and they just specified in one of their memos that it'd be 7 days a week, commencing on Memorial Day each year and ending at Labor Day between noon and 6 p.m. Which seemed acceptable. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Let's just go with the plans that are presented or in the packet, and Council, make your case on that.
Chairman, before we vote aye on that, though, I do have a question on the lighting.
Sure.
Is
Go ahead.
I know it's minor, but I'm just wondering, are you just trying to match the lighting that was approved as close as possible? Or is it any, because you can't get the ones that we did approve? And that I don't see any problem with it, or did they change the lighting completely?
So my understanding is that the fixtures that were obtained are the closest available to the ones that were approved. They will give the same amount of light. It's just a different fixture.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Anybody else, any questions? Okay, so Council, do we, you want to make your case for your variance?
Yes, so the plan that you see on the screen is the rendering prepared by and filed with the Planning Division. It was prepared by HLW. And if you can see on the bottom right, there's a purple band there. And I'll bring John Gehring in a minute, but just to give you an idea, a sign was already approved by this board for that area. The sign that was approved complied with the redevelopment plan requirements, which are that it can only be 20 square feet. And there's a prohibition in the plan against lighting the sign. The ask tonight, the request for relief in connection with that sign, is that the board allow us to make it 54 square feet in size, and that we be permitted to provide internal lighting for that sign. And the reason why the deviations are being requested is because if you look at this project, the main entrance of the building is set back behind the plaza. And there's a lot going on in the plaza. There's landscaping, trees, seating. So it makes it a little bit difficult to actually see from the sidewalk where the main entrance to the building actually is. There's also retail all around the main entrance of the building. So from a pedestrian point of view and people coming and going to the building, we felt that it's important to increase the size of the building to call out the main entrance to the residential part of the building. But there's probably a more important reason that I'll just lay out for you, which is that emergency services and the fire department and the police, they all need to know and be able to easily identify the main entrance of the building. The fire command system, if you looked on the plans, you would see is directly behind the fire command room is directly behind the main entrance of the building. So another reason to increase the size of the sign and light it up is that, you know, besides pedestrians, people coming and going, guests, it's helpful to emergency services to have a slightly bigger sign. In light of the setback of the plaza, we don't think that a 54 square foot sign is outrageous. And in fact, John Gehring prepared an inset of the sign, which is the second slide. We can put that up and show you the sign. It's very tastefully done. That's actually the sign that we're asking be approved. That's on your filed plans. So if you have more questions about the signage, I'll bring John Gehring up to testify. If you've seen enough, that's okay also, and we'll I'll rest.
Council, the only thing I would want to see, can you put up a before and after of the sign? Do you have one available?
A before and after.
Yeah, like the approved size compared to this size.
I do not believe we have that. The approved size was 20 square feet. That sign you're looking at is 54 square feet.
Okay.
It's roughly double the size.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the size is cut and dry. I don't know if we need testimony from Mr. Gehring. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
How bright is the light itself though on the sign? We're seeing like a black and white, it looks like, so I can't tell.
I believe they're internally lit, correct?
Internally lit?
Yes, I believe they are, but you know, I might need to just call John Gehring because the specific details about the lighting, I'm not quite sure of.
Sure. Let's call Mr. Gehring up.
John, are you able to talk? We cannot hear you. Can you hear us, John?
David?
Yeah, I saw your mouth moving before, but no words were coming out.
Do you have the call in number? Oh, connecting audio, I see.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
So there's another John Gehring. Can we just remove that John Gehring?
Yes, remove the one with the chair.
And Mr. Gehring, we're getting a nasty echo from somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the second John Gehring on here.
Okay.
So
Let's take care of
try
it.
to,
Why am I not seeing it? Oh,
It's Jay Gehring.
I will try to adjust the volume. Okay, is this
All
any
right, there we
better?
go. That should be much better. All right, John, let me just swear you in, okay? If you could raise your right hand. Do you
Yes,
swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
And for the record, could you state and spell your name, please?
John Gearing, Gering.
Thank you.
Mr. Gehring, good evening. We've qualified you numerous times. Your license is current tonight?
Yes, it is current.
Okay, thanks. You're qualified.
To clarify the size of the sign is actually the width of the entrance as defined under prior submission. We're simply adding a support ledge with a vertical sign above that ledge. The sign is 30 inches high and 20 feet wide, and it is an LED illuminated sign. The sign is forward of the facade by 1 foot 9 inches to allow the sign to be seen from the street. When we looked at this, we realized that this sign was not large enough, because when you look at it from Marin Avenue, it's essentially 43 feet from Marin. From Bay Street, it's 70 feet. So that, in essence, drove the need to increase the size of the sign. So the sign is very simple. It's essentially LED, and the building acts as the backdrop.
So you're answering my question by saying that my main concern was the brightness of the sign. So basically, by making it larger was to have it more visible. It's not the brightness of the light that's attracting me from Bay Street. So I could say that's a fair assessment to say that.
Yes, the sign will not be overly bright. It will just be larger, because as you saw in the prior rendering, it's not clear where the entrance is. And as Mr. McCann described, we're concerned about the police department in an emergency, the fire department in case of a fire. So we want to really clarify wayfinding. Because when you look at the property, you're looking at the kiosk on the corner, and you're looking at the landscape, which is elevated, covering the front of the building. So the notion of having this sign illuminated will help realize where the entry portal is in the evening time. So but notion we illuminated it.
Okay, I definitely, I do agree with you on that. I passed by there and I see that. I was just more concerned about the brightness, but it is very difficult to see where the building entrance is and stuff like that. I will be very helpful. Thanks for clarifying that for me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Eddie. Anybody else? Any questions, for Mr. Gary? Nope. Okay, thank you, Sarah. We appreciate it. And if you could stop that screen share.
Oh, did we lose Mr. McCann?
Yeah, he's in the audience.
Okay. One moment.
Sure.
First time you guys ever kicked me out.
My term runs until 2025, council.
That's our presentation.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, so at this time, let's open it up for public comment. If anybody's here from the public and you'd like to comment, please raise your hands. And if you are calling in, I don't see anybody calling in, but for the record, you can press *9 to raise your hands. Anybody from public, if you'd like to comment, raise your hand.
Mr. Chair, I don't see public. I move to close the public.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Public is closed. Matt, do you have anything you want to add?
No more testimony from staff. I think the signage variance is clear and testified to for the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case P21-118 as presented to the board tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval.
On a motion to approve, Vice Chair Dr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Torres.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Gangadin.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
And Chairman Langston.
Aye.
Motion carries, all in favor.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, council.
Thank you,
And,
commissioners. Appreciate your time.
No worries. Okay, so once again, we carried item 12 tonight. That was the review and discussion of the updates to the master plan. That has been moved to December 7th, date certain. So let's call item 13 is the review and discussion of the inclusionary zoning, which requires all applicable developments to include a mandatory on-site affordable housing set aside. Formal action may be taken.
Chairman, do you want to take a 5-minute break before we start this?
Mike, what do you think? Do you need a break?
I have no idea how long it'll be. I mean, you know what? Why don't we just take 5 real quick? That would be
Yeah,
great.
let's take 5 and
Excellent.
it's 6:36. We'll come back at 6:41, everybody. Thank you.
So Matt and Mike, how was your Thanksgiving? Good?
Very good. We haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been two meetings, right? The one before Thanksgiving is tough, man, every year for me.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
I go home, yeah. And then that was my travel day. Otherwise, I could have logged in from home, but that was traveling that day.
No.
And then
I
before
don't-
that was my first vacation in a couple of years. So
Did you go to Rome?
I did. Yeah.
I knew it. I knew
I
it.
knew. You
I
got to
know
come.
that's your
with,
favorite
man.
place. I've still never been to Rome.
Dude.
I know.
What
I
are you waiting
know.
for? Let's do a trip, Matt.
I'm in.
Yeah, Matt and hey, Commissioner Gangan.
It's an amazing place.
Isn't it? I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, as a planner, I would think that you would be like so in awe, right?
So much of Italy is just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, you guys don't need me now because you have Commissioner Gangadin who makes all the motions now, and yeah, you just stepped it up there, girl.
Believe me, we always need you.
No,
Don't even try it, Doc.
Don't even try it.
That
Don't even
was a
go
stretch.
there.
That was a real
down.
stretch. Yeah. He does a great job, but yes.
No, listen,
You're needed.
you guys are awesome.
No, when you're not there, we have to scramble at the last minute. Who's gonna be the VP?
And who else is gonna have a record meeting? You know, like get us out of here. The record time.
Oh,
I
Chairman's
have-
back. I wouldn't say anything.
So,
I had to
so
send
Dr.
you-
Gonzalez, just don't get used to it, okay?
No, I know. Okay, all right. Okay.
I still have to send Vidya that fruit basket that I promised her.
Chris, I think it should come from Dr. Gonzalez.
It should.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been trying to get a bottle of wine out of him for.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
All y'all have one coming. Christmas.
All right, let's get on with our lives here, guys. Let's come back to order, and I already called that review and discussion of inclusionary zoning. And just for the record, I believe we lost Commissioner Cruz. He apparently has somewhere better to be.
All right, so we still have 5 members. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
All right. Should I take it from there, Chairman?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we are in city planning. Are really excited to be back before the planning board with the inclusionary zoning ordinance. And I'm just going to start sharing my screen. What we have prepared is a staff memo that we'll go over. I may be reading some sections, and I'll be here to field any questions. Just chime in as we go through it. Okay, sorry about that. All right, here we go. All right. All right, so we have a memo. This is dated today, November 30th, 2021. This was not put on the data portal, so we do want to mark this exhibit. This is a 13-page memo written by me regarding the staff memo for the master plan consistency report regarding ordinance 21-077.
Well, Matt, let's mark it as B1.
All right, mark B1. Thank
And
you.
we do have to mark the notice, please.
Oh, that is true. Santo, have you had a chance to review the notice?
I have reviewed the notice. All does appear to be in order, Mr. Chairman, so let's mark the notice as B1. Let's mark Matt's memo as B2.
All right, thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Santo. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into this. So the planning board is in receipt of ordinance 21-077. This was introduced actually yesterday to City Council, and we have prepared this report for your consideration, and we are looking for you to affirm the recommendation and findings that we have in this report. Our recommendation, so I'm just going to read this section. The staff determined that the proposed IZ ordinance filed under ordinance 21-077 is substantially consistent with the master plan, and staff recommends that the planning board vote to recommend adoption of the municipal council. In accordance with 40:55D-62A of the MLUL, after a land use element of the housing element are adopted, the governing board may adopt or amend a zoning ordinance relating to the nature and extent of the uses of land and of buildings and structures thereon, and all of the provisions of such zoning ordinance or any amendment or revision thereto shall either be substantially consistent with the land use plan element and the housing plan element of the master plan, or designed to effectuate such plan elements. I'll leave the rest of that quote for the memo. So just by way of some history, at the top of page 2 here on the memo, in March of 2019, the planning board adopted a housing plan element detailing concerns over housing affordability and adopted a master plan reexamination report recommending the city adopt an inclusionary zoning ordinance. The reexamination report did not specify the details of what would make a successful or substantially consistent IZ ordinance, but made mention that the city was considering a 20% on-site affordable housing obligation. It was stated that the need for the affordable housing should be assessed in relation to the physical land and whether the pricing of the units is prohibited to cohorts within income categories at or below the median income. I'm sorry, the area median income. The reexamination report went on to state a diversification of households with different incomes within the same areas is imperative for the city to develop holistically. With development comes improvements to utilities, schools, parks / open spaces, and public transit. Those improvements should benefit all Jersey City citizens, new and old, below poverty level, and the households earning more than $200,000 a year, end quote. Lastly, the report included the recommendation that an inclusionary zoning ordinance will address concentrated wealth along with concentrated poverty, and it will require all developments to be inclusive of mixed income communities. So to summarize the reexamination report, 1, an inclusionary zoning ordinance should be adopted. 2, the details of that ordinance were to be assessed. Jersey City's needs are nuanced and that equity is paramount. I'm just going to scroll back up to, I guess, the lead into this recommendation section. So these are certainly polarizing and stressful times, both locally, domestically, and globally. One of these sources of polarization has been over the topic of affordable housing. The Jersey City Division of City Planning supports the creation of inclusionary zoning. However, we know that it's not a panacea to housing affordability or housing security. Instead, inclusionary zoning is one tool that should be balanced alongside numerous other policies and decisions to combat racial, economic, and spatial inequities. So we hope that the polarized conversations about affordable housing in Jersey City have left enough room for the municipal council to think critically and constructively about the specific tool of inclusionary zoning. With that said, I'll move on to the master plan consistency view. So we did find that this proposed ordinance is substantially consistent with the master plan. And as permitted under the law, the inclusionary zoning ordinance requires that certain developments, rezonings, and redevelopment plan adoptions or amendments result in on-site affordable housing set-asides. The set-asides are separated into 2 tiers, which I can show on a map. This map was part of the distribution materials. This is also a part of the ordinance 21-077. This is a map before you titled Inclusionary Zoning Tier Map, dated October 21st, 2021. The city is separated onto 2 tiers. We also call out the NJ Sports and Exposition Authority area as being not applicable. That said, the majority of the city is in Tier 1, which includes low, moderate, and middle income tiers, or areas that are less than 120% AMI, and they have a 10% on-site set aside. And Tier 2, which is mapping upper income tracts, which are greater than or equal to 120% of the AMI, and those areas are, should this chapter be triggered, 15% on-site set aside. So the intent and purpose of the tiering is twofold. Tiering reinforces the recommendations of the 2019 reexamination report to distribute the gains of growth equitably. The ordinance also requires that city planning assess demographics and needs by mandating the staff review and that other administrative controls of the affordable units by, sorry, did I skip the part here? The ordinance also requires that city planning assess demographics and needs by mandating the staff review and update to the tier map every 5 years. The ordinance uses chapter 188 and UHAC, which is UHAC, to address the income distributions and other administrative controls of the affordable units by requiring applicable developments to include affordable housing set-asides pursuant to chapter 188 and UHAC. The city is creating ample opportunity for mixed income neighborhoods and increased access to neighborhood facilities and improvements. So this next section in this memo looks long. I'm not gonna, the 13 pages sounds long, but we've embedded the body of the ordinance in here. And we've added inline staff comments just to highlight certain sections. So I'm gonna be scrolling through. If there are sections that I'm not touching upon in the ordinance that you have any questions on, we can scroll back to those sections. So just how you can read this is there's going to be an underlined section. For example, the title, part of the title is underlined. There's a number that refers to the note. So this note 1 is just referencing the title of the ordinance, which includes the word applicable to signal that this is a triggered-based inclusionary zoning ordinance, not a mandate, which is not permitted in regular zones. So the trigger-based is what we've landed on. There's been some confusion, especially in newspapers about this. And we want to make it very clear that this is trigger-based inclusionary zoning ordinance as permitted under the law. Below below there are whereas statements regarding the purpose and intent of this ordinance and the history regarding the prior IZO. Definitions. The definitions have been reviewed and updated as necessary. For example, the proving authority once was department and division heads that had the power to evaluate reductions. That's no longer the case. Now there are no buyouts or reductions. And the approving authority is now defined as the planning board or zoning board. All right. Just there's a call out here for UHAC, which means the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls. I was using that acronym earlier. This is a state law that guides affordability and the administration of those units. Yes, also, it's important to note that the UHAC is still employed in this ordinance and that Chapter 187 and Chapter 188 are linked by usage of UHAC and by the oversight of the Division of Affordable Housing. Now we're going to get more into the meat of the ordinance. So we're starting here with 187-3, applicability and exemptions. Note number 4 highlights this main trigger paragraph. So I'm just going to read this in its entirety. All developments with a residential component, including mixed-use developments for which a developer requests and or obtains 5 or more residential units or 5,000 or more square feet of residential floor area, inclusive of residential hallways and egress areas. I, as a result of variances pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-70C and D, II, as a result of rezoning, or III, as the result of the adoption of a new or amended redevelopment / rehabilitation. I'm going to just say or rehabilitation plan pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. So there's a note that goes along with this really important clause, the applicability clause. or as I'm referring to it as a trigger, paragraph 1 above, has been cleaned up from the prior ordinance. It's important to note that the phrase inclusive of residential hallways and egress areas was added to close loopholes and clarify how to calculate floor area in residential areas. I'm going to reiterate here and several times throughout this memo, there are no buyouts or reductions possible for applicable developments, rezonings, or adoption/amendments to redevelopment plans. With that said, I do want to spend some time on II and III above. It's important to, when a rezoning or amendment to a redevelopment plan is requested, obtained, or simply proposed, city planning staff will assess whether there is an increase in units or floor area that triggers this chapter, or whether there is a rebalancing of the bulk standards that does not result in an increase of 5,000 units. I'm sorry, 5 residential units or 5,000 square feet of residential floor area. For example, we have 2 here. If a redevelopment plan amendment increases building height, but also decreases building coverage or decreases the permitted floor plate of a tower, there could be an instance where an amendment does not trigger the IZO. Another example, in the latest master plan, which we thought we were going to hear tonight, there are several corrective zoning recommendations. One example that you'll hear about when we present it to you is changing some areas of the city from R1 to the R2D zone. That is a change from an implied density of 35 units per acre or 1 and 2 family homes on a 25 by 100 lot to 75 units per acre on a 25 by 100 lot. In other words, that's going from 2 units to 4 units on a 25 by 100 lot. So that is under the exemption per this chapter of developments less than 15 total residential units. However, it is still increasing those units from 2 to 4. Okay. Moving on to paragraph or section B, the following developments shall be exempt from the requirements of this chapter. So I just mentioned this, developments less than 15 total residential units are exempt. And I just wanted to call out this language because this is actually slightly changed from the prior ordinance. Before that, the exemption was 15 units or less were exempt. We've increased it by 1 to 15. And that was mostly a result of looking at how 10 and 15% set-asides pan out when you have 14 versus 15 units. So with 15 units, you get to 1.5 units that's supposed to be designated as affordable, and then that gets rounded up to 2 per this chapter. Okay, moving on to the page split's a little bit annoying here, but we're moving on to the affordable housing set aside under chapter or in section 187-4. This is where we specify and call out the 2 tiers. So tier 1, the paragraph starts here. We just reiterating some of the information I talked about earlier, how this is developments in low, moderate, and middle income census tracts. We say this is a 10% set aside, and we call out what low, moderate, and middle income means in this very paragraph. And this is furthered by note 6. So to address the goals and objectives specified in the master plan reexamination report, the affordable housing set aside has been parsed out into 2 tiers. The tiers are delineated by census tract and by using median family income. The method is further specified on the map. Tier 1, as specified above, is a 10% set aside for applicable developments and all areas less than 120% of area median income. Again, there are no buyouts or reductions if this chapter is triggered. In addition, the language specifies that if an inclusionary zoning development in tier 1 receives a tax abatement, that the affordable housing set aside shall be increased to a minimum of 15% set aside. And worth noting is that tier 1 is 69% of Jersey City land area. And then 9% of that 69 is the NJSEA area. Tier 2, this is the 15% set aside area. This is greater than or equal to 120% of the area median income. And this area makes up 31% of the Jersey City land area. Again, no buyouts, no reductions. Paragraph 3, which is covered by note 8. I'm just gonna scroll down to the next one. So note 8 just is a paragraph that references and addresses any projects that receive subsidy as listed in that paragraph. They shall have a set aside of 20% on site, regardless of the tier that they're in. And then we have B here that talks about the rounding of units. So rounding is slightly altered from the last ordinance. If the set aside had a fraction of 0.5 or higher, it was rounded up to the next whole unit. What was added here is that if the set aside has a fractional unit less than 0.5, the developer shall provide a payment in lieu of the fractional amount. So what that means is that there's an example here. An applicable development in tier 2 with 42 units would have a set aside of 6.3 units. So 42 times 15%, 6.3. In this example, 6 affordable units would be required on site, and a payment in lieu on site for the amount of $54,000 would be required to satisfy the fractional unit. The chapter specifies that the funds are deposited into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the creation of affordable housing in Jersey City. All right, moving on to 187-5, there's additional standards for affordable housing. These 2 additional standards are necessary to balance the cost benefit of the mandatory set aside. Moving on to the tier map section of the chapter, note 11, we're just specifying the tiers listed again by map. The method of creating the map is listed on the map, and uses family area median income from 2021 and 2019 as available from HUD and the American Community Survey. As mentioned earlier, city planning is supposed to update this every 5 years by council action. This timeframe was recommended by a Fair Share Housing Center to avoid numerous annual updates or having a static map. Note 13, note no exception to the tier map is permitted. This clause should garner assurance that there are no loopholes. Compliance, we referencing here UHAC again in chapter 188. I just want to call out that we shorthanded certificate of occupancy, but this has been the rule of thumb already put into place with the Division of Affordable Housing, that we need to enter into an affordable housing agreement prior to the issuance of any CO. Let's see. This is new. There's an administrative fee that was added. So it's been found that there's administrative costs associated with formalizing the affordable housing agreements. And this chapter now has implemented a fee of $2,000 to cover that administrative cost associated with formalizing the affordable housing agreement. We have a violations chapter, severability chapter, inconsistencies chapter, and lastly, the effective date and scope. So it's worth noting that this ordinance will go into effect immediately upon the second reading, should it pass. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Let's open it up for questions from the board at this point. Anybody want to go first, or should I just jump in?
Jump in, Commissioner.
Okay.
Okay.
So Matt, I'm correct to say that the only way this gets triggered is if there's a deviation or variance requested, or a new redevelopment plan is enacted, or redevelopment plan is changed that results in 5 or more units being created, correct?
Yeah, so, right, 5 or more units or 5,000 or more square feet of residential floor area.
Okay, so this gets to my question is, in the case where this is triggered, where 5 or more units are granted, and this is triggered, is an applicant able to come back to the board later? You know, we often see an applicant come back with a reduction in units. Once this is triggered, can it be taken back in that manner?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, so let me see if I understand it. So what you're saying is there's a 20-unit building, for example, that comes back for an amendment reducing their unit count to 14, or is that what you're asking?
Yeah, let's say there's a 20-unit building and they ask for an additional floor, and we grant 5 more units to that building. So now they trigger this IZO. Later they come back and for some reason they ask for a hardship variance that now they need to reduce the number of units in that building.
From 25 to 20, which they would be permitted?
Yeah, let's say it goes back to the 20 that was permitted originally.
Without any variance?
With no variance. They come back and amend their plan to an as-of-right plan.
Yeah, to me, that seems no different from that property changing hands, or that same owner making another application because they have the right to under the zoning.
Okay.
So I think in that example, you're saying if they absolve themselves of the trigger or of having this chapter apply to them, that we wouldn't be able to apply it. Even if it was amendment and they removed that scope of the project, which kicked in this chapter.
Okay. And I know I'm splitting hairs here, but let's say they go down to a 21-unit project or a 22-unit project, which would absolve them of that affordable housing component.
Right. So if they're under 5 units or more, or 5,000 square feet or more square feet, 5,000 or more square feet of residential floor area, as a result of that C or D variance, then yes, this chapter applies. If they are, just to make this example simple, if they're at 4 more units and 4,000 more square feet of residential floor area, because of that C or D variance, yes, they would not trigger this chapter.
Okay. So, and I guess I'd have to ask, you as well as Santo maybe on this. Does that, let's say that scenario happens, someone comes in, they trigger the IZO, they come back to us with 1 less unit in that variance that untriggers the IZO. Can we consider that in any decision moving forward?
We do have this, well, Santo, if you want to chime in, but we do have this paragraph, and I didn't highlight it with the note. But under the applicability and exemptions section of this chapter, paragraph C, nothing in here precludes the city of Jersey City or approving authority from requiring affordable housing set aside in a development not required to have a set aside pursuant to this chapter, or requiring a higher affordable housing set aside in any development, so long as it's consistent with NJSA 52:27D-311H or other applicable law. This provision does not grant the city or approving authority any additional authority beyond what they already possess, and is intended to reserve the right to exercise existing authority in accordance with applicable law. For example, the city reserves the right, when it conveys municipally owned land or permits development to occur on municipally owned land, to require a higher set aside of affordable housing in exchange. So this is meant to say that, you know, if there's an area, if there's a redevelopment plan amendment, for example, that would clearly trigger this chapter, and it's in tier 2, that the approving authority, which is the planning board in that case, or the municipal council, could opine on setting a higher set aside of, say, 15%.
Okay. I'm not sure that answered my question or not, but that's good information also.
Okay.
My question would be,
So Chairman, I think first, this provision C is going to be a little tricky in some aspects. But going to the question and back up to, I think it was A1, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So this provision from a construction standpoint, right, a legal construction standpoint of the ordinance, this provision is talking about 5 or more residential units. So you have to have a floor number, some number that's permitted. Whether that's 3 units or 10 units, right? So you have to have a floor in order for it to be quote unquote 5 or more residential units. Or the 5,000 square feet of residential floor area, that, I don't know, that's going to be very specific in very specific areas, right? Because you're talking about a set floor area in a plan somewhere, and this exceeding that amount. But with the 5 units, you have to have a floor. So let's say the floor can only have 5 units on this property. When you get into little 1, I don't know, reading this paragraph, if what we're saying is I'm getting 5 more units as the result of a C variance, or if what we're saying is you're getting 5 more units and you're asking for a C variance. So if the C variance is a parking variance that has nothing to do with the units, right? Does that then trigger this? And I just see that as being somewhat of a struggle. And I'll let Matt jump back in Again,
Yeah, so I think we had to include a square feet of residential floor area because of the particularities of Jersey City, where in large swaths of the city, we actually do not have a density standard,
right.
including NC, Journal Square 2060 redevelopment plan, Jackson Hill redevelopment plan, Ocean Avenue South redevelopment plan. So in those areas, we wouldn't have applicability if we didn't include the 5,000 square feet. So the 5, I think, is a lot clearer. I think in more instances, it's easier to assess a use or a density variance as triggering that 5. So going from a zone that's zoned 1 and 2 family to a multifamily building or a density variance that results in the addition of 5 units above the max permitted density or units per acre. I agree with you. Without knowing every last permutation that we might see as this chapter begins to live in city planning staff's day-to-day, but there might be one out there that just doesn't come to mind at the moment.
Well, and so what I'm not sure of is whether or not the provision as it's drafted accomplishes the drafter's goal when writing the provision, right? I don't know if maybe it has an unintended consequence. Maybe not. I can't answer that. But Matt, it sounds to me like outside of the redevelopment realm, these are going to be density variances in front of the zoning board for the most part. Is
Yes.
that-
Yes, some maybe an expansion, maybe a use variance, but typically a
D
height
variance.
variance or a density. Yeah,
But a D
So-
variance that's over at the zoning board as opposed
Right.
to for this body.
right. Yeah, the only thing at this body would be obviously the C, and more often than not, I would say that's probably going to lean towards the 5,000 square feet.
So I'm just not appreciating what variance that is under the C category.
What do you mean?
The 5,000 square feet, but you're getting a C variance connected to it?
Correct.
What's the example of that?
In some zones, we have, say where we're permitting a tower, we have a maximum dimension on the diagonal of that tower.
Okay,
If they're asking for relief from that dimension, which grows the floor plate of that building, that is a C variance that could very easily, actually exponentially get over 5,000 square feet
Right.
pretty quickly.
all right, because, yeah,
Yeah, and there's step backs, there's tower step backs, there's setback variances. So it will be triggered by Cs where we review them under the C variance criteria, which might be a defect of the MLUL in some respects that doesn't necessarily address the urban context where we're introducing these step backs and tiering of buildings, especially towers.
so that makes a ton of sense to me. I'm just struggling with the construction of the provision, that's all.
I think I understand some of the concern. I'm not sure if I share it. I think I understand it though. It's whether or not a C variance will trigger the 5 or more residential units. And if that would happen, I guess, faster or more frequently than than getting up to this 5,000 or more square feet.
Well,
You
but
know,
that would push you into the density variance anyway,
right.
even if you have
right.
one more unit.
Yeah.
Outside of the 1 and 2s.
Yeah. I'm not sure if parsing it out any further than this would accomplish anything. I think that
I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I'm just not sure that what you're thinking and appreciating in your mind is translating into the written word in front of us. Is all I'm
I-
struggling with. And that's
maybe I just don't understand what you're saying, but I think it's very clear.
okay. I think it's very clear to you because I think you're thinking of those concrete things in your own mind. Where when you said it to me, then all of a sudden it becomes clear, right? But my so my struggle is,
if there's more C variance examples, I could probably come up with some more, but there's many instances where a C could trigger this.
But does it have to be, right? Does it have to be a variance?
What do you mean, does it have to be a variance? No. What do you mean? What has to be a variance?
So
to trigger
is the variance.
Correct.
Right?
As a result of a variance. Or as a result of a rezoning.
Right. That's
or an
the
amendment.
trigger.
Yes. So that's, I guess what we could say is that those are qualifiers for the trigger. Is that better? Maybe
Well,
a better way to...
in all honesty, my struggle is I'm okay with all developments with a residential component, including mixed-use development, for which a developer requests and or obtains, right?
Mhm.
That those 4 words, because then you jump to as a result of.
Right. So I mean, I guess you could have changed it where 5, I don't know, you could have moved some of that qualifying language down to an exemption, but this is the format that we had it in previous ordinance. And in keeping with it, we left it this way. And maybe I've been living with it too long, but it seems clear to me. That's qualifying language, and then the
Well, so now let's play
I.
out the chairman's question or the follow-up to chairman's question, right?
Okay.
Developer requests, we'll do the easy one, in my opinion. Developer requests 5 more units.
Sure.
Amends the application to 3 units. Over the requirement or the permitted.
And did they also through that C variance, I'm assuming you're
Oh,
following?
well, in this scenario, right, it's a density variance in front of the zoning.
A density variance, and they're in every
You're
other,
asking for 5 more than permitted.
and in every other respect, they're meeting the bulk requirements.
Well, in that scenario, it's rare that you meet the bulk requirements when you have a density variance. It's possible,
But I think for the sake of so I don't like hypotheticals, but if we want to talk about hypotheticals, we have to make it clear that it's not also triggering the 5,000 or more square feet.
It's not triggering the 5,000 or more square feet.
Okay.
All right.
So you're going from
It's
5
triggering,
down to 3. Is that
now we're down to 3.
Yes. And they
As
want
the
to come back for an amendment to that application.
Yes.
They amend the application that night and remove 2 units.
I don't believe that we'll receive an application that wants to trigger the variance or trigger this chapter and then comes back to amend it. I just don't think that will happen, but for the sake of this hypothetical, I don't believe it wouldn't be in their right to ask for the removal of that condition of approval.
But it hasn't been granted yet. It's happening, right?
Okay.
In my scenario, I've brought an application. I exceed this 5-unit density standard. I'm asking for 5 more units than I'm permitted.
Okay.
And that's a D variance in front of the zoning board, and we all agree that's the only trigger for the ICO.
Okay.
That night, I'm hearing the comments and I decide, well, I'm removing 1 of the units. So now I'm down to 4 more than I'm permitted. We're going to carry the application. I'll be back next month with a revised plan that's 4 more than what's permitted. Does this still get triggered? Do they have to provide the affordable?
I don't believe so, no.
So then why is the word requests after the word developer in that second sentence? Because I would take the position, well, wait a minute, you requested it. You may have amended it, but you requested it. So that's, and again, it's easy to sit here and play, you know, the Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to give you a hard time at all, although it may sound like I am. I'm not.
All right.
I don't want something that isn't what's intended is my only point. So
I think if we hang our hat on that request word, I just don't know. And someone goes from 5 to 4 and obviously no longer triggers this chapter. I mean, I think the approving authority will make the decision they see fit, but we might have a problem on our hands.
So
unfortunately, it's a zoning board matter and Vinny's gonna have to deal with it, not me, but
Sure.
that's, again, I don't want to beat you up on it. I
mean, just by way of some background, like we didn't even have under the prior ordinance, the IZO, we didn't have an application go through the zoning board. So people weren't requesting to trigger the IZO.
Well, that's also true, right? There's no, look, if the trigger's 5, the applications are gonna be for 4, nobody goes to the 5, right? You're gonna go to 10 or 20. You don't go 5,001 feet.
yeah.
I mean, that's, yes, that's, at least my private clients don't, because I tell them not to, right? I go, let's go for more. So it could happen. And again, we're into the weeds on it. And the only reason I use examples is because that's how
I think the
explain
request,
it, but
the request word, I think, is more important when you apply it to the result of a rezoning or an amendment request. So it might just,
okay.
it's just doing different service, I think, to this overall paragraph. And I think the real intent for a C or D variance application is if it's requesting it and the board is granting them obtaining something that triggers this chapter. That would be, I think, how it's probably going to get administered.
So, and again, you can tell me no. Maybe the word request goes after little I2, little I3. And it's just reworded in right as the result of a request for the variance, as a result of the request for rezoning, as a result of the request for adoption.
How does the first part of the sentence work?
I think you leave it as obtaining. I think you split request and obtain perhaps. And again,
That
I don't
sentence
expect you
does,
to look at it and do it now, right? I'm just,
I don't know if that sentence structure makes sense. Because the obtains, the request and or obtains applies to the qualifying 5 and the 5,000.
So I think,
I think that's, I don't know.
and-
As a
and
result of
Santo,
a request of variance, I don't know, but yeah, I perhaps and maybe this isn't the best format to get into the semantics of it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I understand where Santo's going, and I think it's, you know, something that could be looked at before final adoption if it does go through to that point.
which is my only point, right? My personal comment is if it's going to be recommended, my recommendation is that we look at the construction of the language to make sure it achieves the goal.
Okay, so it's looking at where to put requests and if it's whether or not it's in the right location, or we can put it after a double I or the triple I, or I'm not sure that the single I guess, because that's where you raise the most problems. Okay.
So if I hate to do it to you, Matt, but if I can jump back into a scenario again, same
Sure.
scenario. So I'll pick it up where, you know, whether it's this board or it's a different board grants a deviation that triggers the IZO, whatever that deviation may be, not important to me right now. And the applicant at a later date comes back for an amendment to their application. They remove that trigger. Let's say whatever the approving authority turns them down. So now they're still bound to the trigger in the IZO. What is that board's legal exposure? It is basically what I've been trying to get at. I would consider the trigger of the IZO, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would consider that a public benefit. So if I base my vote on them taking that public benefit away in a plan amendment or an application amendment, or is a board liable or open to a lawsuit at that point from that applicant? I don't know if anybody followed that.
Oh, but they're free to file and build whatever they get approved, and they can have multiple approvals. So, you know, if you're going to start denying applications because there's no affordable housing component, that's going to be a problem for you.
I'm not saying, you know, from, and the kids use this phrase, from jump, that I would, you
I'm
know.
not familiar with that term.
You have, you know it. That, you know, we couldn't require that an applicant trigger the IZO as part of their initial site plan application. But what I'm saying is, if they come back at a later date with a reduction that, you know, takes that trigger away, and the approving authority denies them based on the IZO being a public good, does that put them in legal jeopardy now? Maybe I'm overthinking this. Tell me if I am.
We don't know the answer to that. We're gonna find out, I suspect, right? That's the kind of stuff that lawsuits are made of, Chairman.
Sure. Okay. The far simpler question I have, and Matt, we've talked about this every time I have an affordable housing component that comes up in a site plan application. I condition that applicant build those units with the same love and care and materials that they build every other unit in that development. So is that the case in this language?
So I spoke with Gigi, the division, director of the Division of Affordable Housing about this. And this is something that they're going to be putting into their affordable housing agreements. So they believe it's in their power to request that change, and what they have already made it a practice to do that, and haven't run into any problems requiring that.
Okay. So, does it add an extra layer of security to them that we continue to ask for that condition in any application that has this IZO triggered?
I guess it would, yes. But I don't think that they're worried at this point about requiring that in their affordable housing agreements.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are things I worry about personally. So yeah, I would, if you guys indulge me, I'll continue to ask for that whenever we have an affordable housing component. Those are all my questions. Anybody else?
I just have one question.
Sure, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Matt, 187-4, affordable housing set aside, tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, does it help or hurt to raise, or can it even be done to raise the threshold from 10%?
Excuse me?
Okay, so my question is, can the 10% be changed? And if it was changed, the 10% set aside,
Mhm.
if it was changed, would it help or hurt the affordable housing?
That's a very difficult question to answer. So one of the problems with a inclusionary zoning ordinance, which is predicated on a developer asking for more, is that if you set the set-asides too high, it will result in zero affordable units getting built.
Yep.
If you set it too low, then from a public opinion side, it will be considered that the developers are running away with the store.
Okay.
We believe that the tiers and the method by which we have devised the tiers is appropriate, and the set-asides that go along with that tiering. I hope that got at the question.
Oh, no, that was a good answer, because I just didn't know. That's all. That was a perfect answer.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions?
I have a question for Matt. And the same thing as with the previous commissioner that spoke on. It's basically, I see it's in here on the tiers of affordable housing, and what triggers from affordable housing and the different stages of affordable housing that we could see more low-income housing. being developed, because of, it seems like the need in the wards that are with less income, wards, the need is not for affordable. It's basically, the need is more low income. How do we take
Sure.
it out?
So UHAC, which we're pointing to those uniform housing affordability controls, it specifies that certain mix of those affordable units need to be low and moderate, and then it carves out actually a portion of those units to be very low income. So by leaning on that state law, we are creating opportunities to house very low income individuals and families.
All right, now, another thing then, is there I know certain people that moved into some affordable housing and projects that were just built recently.
Mhm.
Is there a time frame for these type of things? Like, after a year, after 5 years, the developer doesn't have to apply with this anymore? Or if
So
the properties change ownership, does it eliminate the affordability of housing there? And then,
So the affordable housing agreement, the effect of that, I believe, will result in a deed restriction on the property, which should follow title. And UHAC specifies 30 years for any of the deed restrictions, and the release of that deed restriction, I believe, is specified in that same law that it is done by council action.
thank you.
I concur with that, Matt.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else? All right, thanks, Matt. Do you have anything else, or can I open it up to public at this point?
No, I open up to public.
Okay, so at this time, let's open it up for public comment. If anybody's here that wants to comment, please raise your hand. And once again, I don't see anybody that's calling in, but if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand.
Promoting Elam Okasny.
How's it going, sir?
Hey, hello. Am I on?
You are on. I just want to swear you in before you speak, though, okay? If you could raise your
Sure.
right hand. Do you swear any testimony you give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep. Yeah.
And for the record, could you state and spell your name for me, please?
Sure. My name is Elam Ocansey. That's ELORM OCANSEY.
Thank you.
Mr. Ocansey, good evening. We have 5 minutes for you.
Cool. Thank you. So like I said, my name is Elam Ocansey. I am an organizer with Fair Share Housing Center, and I'm here to just share a brief statement about the inclusionary zoning ordinance. As you all know, strong inclusionary zoning ordinance is critical to maintaining affordability and preventing displacement. In addition, it's a key component of a comprehensive strategy for racial and socioeconomic integration. And Fair Share Housing Center is very hopeful that this inclusionary zoning ordinance, once enacted and enforced, will be a significant step towards ensuring that new developments are inclusive and equitable and will foster a vibrant, diverse community in Jersey City for years to come. However, in closing, I'll personally add that as a friend of the Jersey City community, I would like to commend Mayor Fulop for collaborating with Fair Share Housing Center to create a better IZO. However, also, I must echo the voices of the many community members, leaders, and organizations who've campaigned vigorously for a strong IZO, and share that we're all looking forward to council leadership increasing the set asides come December 15th or whenever this IZO is back in front of City Council. So thank you all for the opportunity to speak, and I will yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, anybody else from the public? If you'd like to comment, once again, please raise your hands. And if you are calling in, press *9 to raise your hands. Anybody else from public?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone. I move to close the public.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Public is closed. Matt, obviously, we have your recommendation, correct?
Yes, if you want me to reiterate it, we determined that this is substantially consistent with the master plan, and staff recommends the planning board vote to recommend adoption by municipal council.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to now make a motion to accept and approve as presented today to the board the review and discussion of inclusionary zoning, which requires all applicable developments to include a mandatory on-site affordable housing set aside, and forward this to City Council for formal adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval and forwarding to City Council.
Sorry, Vice Chairman Dr. Gonzalez.
Matt, you did a great job. I know you've probably spent a lot of time on this. It shows. You know, it's times like this where you kind of are proud of serving in a board where your staff is trying to really make a difference in the city that we live. So I think you did a really good job. I appreciate your work. So I would.
Commissioner Torres.
You know, Matt, looking through these documents and reading up on this stuff, you really appreciate the fact the work that you have and you do. At this conversation of quite a few people in Jersey City, like the Vice Chair said, you know, very proud when I know that the mayor himself has us have you and your staff and the council reach out to the community. Where they did. It makes it easier for me to cast a vote because I know that really you guys really reached out. There's a lot of work behind this. This is not something been put together. I commend you for that. I commend City Council for having their wards open and their community groups. And, you know, it makes it so much easier just to say, hey, I vote aye on this one because you guys really are looking out for the community, and we need to let everybody in Jersey City know that everybody in Jersey City is a part of Jersey City. Low income to rich income. Everybody is a part of the city that it is. Definitely voting.
Commissioner Cruz.
He's not here.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Commissioner Gangadin.
Matt, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate all the work that you've put into this, and thank you to the planning department for this IZOA. We live in Jersey City and we know the importance as equity is very important. You guys did an awesome job in incorporating all of the work, the legal terms to protect and to preserve Jersey City here. So thank you again. I voted aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Matt, just like everybody else said, thank you for your hard work, your office. You know, taking a look at the documents, it seemed pretty thorough. I think you did your homework on this one. I'm like the chairman. I have my doubts. I'm just going to be honest. I have my doubts. I just hope someone who's really, really smart doesn't find a way to exploit anything that's in here. Again, good work. I'm vote aye.
And Chairman Langston.
Yeah, I want to echo everybody else here. Matt, you guys did a great job on this, you planning staff. I appreciate that you reached out to Fair Share Housing on this. I think it's a great collaboration. I think it's a solid plan, and you know, I agree with Jeffrey. I hope there's somebody out there that doesn't find that loophole that some, you know, that we've missed, that City Council has missed, that the planning staff has missed. I hope it's not there, and you know, I look forward to seeing more affordable housing on the street, and I'm going to vote aye.
Motion carries 5-4-0 against, and just for the record, Commissioner Cruz is absent.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe, let me bring up my agenda again. Let's move on to memorialization of resolutions, everybody.
Mr. Chair, I only have 2 resolutions. I want to confirm that that is correct, Matt. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following resolutions. The first resolution is resolution of the Planning Board of the City of Jersey City authorizing and approving the appointment of legal counsel. And the second resolution is agreement of legal services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Could I have a roll call, please, for memorialization, Matt?
Absolutely. Vice Chairman Dr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Torres,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
No, Commissioner Cruz.
Oh my gosh. Commissioner Gangadin,
Aye.
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
and Chairman Langston.
Aye.
And I just want to say thank you for the kind words, commissioners.
No worries.
I'll take those back to Tanya and everyone else.
Okay.
Chairman, just before you
Please
call to adjourn, Matt, in all sincerity, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. So everybody understands, I talked to Matt. Matt does do a tremendous job. I have the utmost respect for you, Matt, and I just want, you know, I want everything to be the best it can be, so.
Likewise, I think it's a good point. We'll have to see if it warrants a revisit.
And Chairman, I want to make sure for Michael and his group over there, we got to do a resolution for them. I don't know why it hasn't been on yet. I want to make sure he's getting paid, so.
Get it
let's
done.
follow up on that and make sure we get it on for the December 7th. If we
Yep.
don't have it, I'll get it back over to you guys.
Yep,
And
we'll
I
get it
thank
done.
everybody again for another year. It's going to be a great year. We're going to see each other, feel it.
Well, Mr. Chair, with that, did we just memorialize Santo to be here for another year?
We did.
Can we go back on that? Nah.
You could. You could. You want to put that to a vote?
You know, I'm
Make
kidding.
the motion,
I'm
Vice
kidding
Chair.
with you, buddy. Love you.
Yeah, I mean, we can go back on it. If Chris Cuomo can get suspended indefinitely, we can.
That's right. That's
suspend
right.
him. But that's breaking news, by the way, everybody. Chris Cuomo indefinitely suspended. All right.
Thanks for putting me in the conversation with those guys.
No worries. No worries. Do we need an
Been
executive?
happy about that a year ago.
Do we need anything else? Executive session, or are we good?
We're good.
We're good.
guys.
Chairman, before we adjourn,
Sure.
the December 7th meeting, we have a court-ordered remand.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that we have a quorum for that meeting. It is
Oh, boy.
very important that we do. The only reason I mention is because I know we're down to 5 right now. So, you know, as we come into the holiday season, I want to make sure that we have a quorum. So everybody, please, it is a priority.
So I have a question relating to that. If we
Oh,
have a
boy.
new, if we have a, yes, if we have a new commissioner who joins, are they able to vote on that? Is there something that we need to update them on, or are they not qualified to vote because they weren't here for the original hearing?
They're gonna have to read everything and get up to speed in order to vote. They'll have to certify to all of that, obviously. So I welcome the new commissioner. I hope that they have the opportunity to read all of the material and get up to speed on it. It's a lot of material. You know, let's make sure we have a quorum without that individual and we can deal with if they're prepared to take action and be able to take action, but
I just asked a question. Is there any way of changing that date though, because of what else is going on that day?
Is it a what?
Is there any chance of changing the date for that to be presented to the board for what's happening on that day? That we might lose certain commissioners?
I mean, we cannot change that date.
Can't change the date, okay?
We don't have a quorum. You know, it's gonna get punted, obviously, and you know, I'll deal with the court, and that's it. That's all I can really say about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll go on record now. I'll be there definitely.
Just in keeping with that housekeeping with the new commissioner, we'll make sure to just double check all of the attendance for the first go around.
Sure.
And we may be sending out the transcripts
Okay.
And,
for other folks as well.
Yeah. So Chairman, I have a conference on that date, but, and you know that I'll do anything to be here. Do we have to do video? If I'm traveling, can I do audio? Can I chime in on that in that way? Santo? Or does it have to be video? I'm just asking in case.
I prefer it to be video.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
I would suggest you bring your phone and use the Zoom function on your phone.
Right. That's the day that I'm traveling. That's why. But I'll figure it out. We'll figure. Hopefully, we have a quorum. I'm sure we will.
I would hope
I will
so.
be there.
You will be there, Commissioner
Yes.
Gannon?
Yes.
I'll be there also.
Oh, there you go. 3.
I'm there.
4.
All right, let's just,
So Vice Chair, you
Yeah.
have to
On
sign
it.
it.
Yeah, I have it. I got it in the back of my head now. We'll make sure that the attendance kind of lines up with the quorum that we're putting together, and we'll make sure that if there's any certifications needed, we'll make people do some homework.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment then.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Good night.
thanks, everybody.